I still remember the night I served my husband with the big D papers during his award speech. It was a moment of pure satisfaction, the culmination of months of pain, discovery, and planning. But to understand why I did it, you have to go back to the beginning of our story. We met in college, and he was charming, charismatic, and seemed to have it all together. I was swept off my feet, and we got married soon after graduation. He was my first love, and I thought he was my forever love. At first, everything was perfect. We were the envy of all our friends, with a beautiful home, a thriving business, and a loving relationship. But as time went on, I started to notice little things that didn't add up. He would be gone for hours at a time, and when I asked him where he was, he would just brush it off, saying he was working late. I tried to push the thoughts out of my mind, telling myself I was being paranoid, but the feeling of unease lingered. One day, I decided to surprise him at the office, but when I got there, I found out he had left for the day. I asked his assistant if she knew where he was, and she hesitated before telling me that he had gone to a meeting at a nearby park. I decided to follow him, and what I saw changed everything. He was sitting on a bench with a woman, laughing and holding her hand. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I didn't know what to do, so I just stood there, frozen in shock. As I watched, the woman got up and left, and my husband called after her, saying, "I'll see you tonight, Emily." Emily? Who is Emily? I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as I realized that my husband was having a situationship. I didn't confront him right then. Instead, I decided to do some digging. I started by looking through our finances, and that's when I found a suspicious payment to a woman named Emily. It was labeled as a consulting fee, but I knew that was just a cover. I decided to investigate further, and that's when I discovered the hidden nanny. It turned out that Emily was not just his mistress, but she was also the nanny he had hired to take care of our children. I felt betrayed, not just by my husband, but also by the fact that he had brought this woman into our home, around our kids. I knew then that I had to get out of the marriage, but I wanted to do it in a way that would make a statement. That's when I started planning my revenge. I found out that my husband was up for a major award in his industry, and I knew that he would be giving a speech. I decided that would be the perfect moment to serve him with the big D papers. I hired a process server to do the deed, and I made sure to get a front row seat to the ceremony. As my husband took the stage, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. He began to give his speech, thanking his colleagues and his family, and that's when the process server made her move. She walked up to the stage and handed him the papers, and the room fell silent. My husband's face turned bright red as he realized what was happening, and I could see the shock and embarrassment written all over his face. The audience gasped, and some people started to murmur. My husband tried to play it cool, but I could see the panic in his eyes. He tried to continue with his speech, but it was too late. The damage was done. I had made my point, and I had taken back control of my life. As I stood up and walked out of the room, I felt a sense of liberation wash over me. I knew that I still had a long way to go, but I was ready to take on the challenge. The fallout from that night was intense. My husband tried to spin the story, saying that I was crazy and that I had overreacted. But I knew the truth, and I had the proof. The big D was messy, but in the end, I got what I wanted: custody of the kids and a fair settlement. As for my husband, he was left to pick up the pieces of his shattered reputation. He had thought he could get away with his infidelity, but in the end, he was the one who was left looking like a fool. Looking back, I realized that I was blind to the signs. I was so caught up in the idea of our perfect marriage that I ignored the red flags. But I've learned from my mistakes. I've learned that trust is everything in a relationship, and that if it's broken, it can never be fully repaired. I've also learned that I deserve better, and that I will never settle for anything less than what I deserve. As for my husband, I hope he's learned his lesson. I hope he realizes that his actions have consequences, and that he can't just stepping out and lie his way through life. But most of all, I hope he understands that he lost something truly special when he lost me. I was his partner, his best friend, and his soulmate. And he threw it all away for a cheap thrill. In the end, I'm grateful for the experience. It was painful, but it taught me so much about myself and about what I want from life. I've moved on and I've found happiness again. And as for my husband, I hope he's found what he's looking for. But I know that I'm better off without him. I'm stronger, wiser, and more confident than ever before. And I know that no matter what life throws my way, I'll always be able to handle it.